Republicans who control the state Senate are trying to force a vote on the state's top elections official, Wisconsin Elections Commission Administrator Meagan Wolfe. They're trying to get around an attempt by Democrats who tried to block the Senate from getting the chance to vote on her confirmation. During a vote on Tuesday, 3 Republican members voted in favor and 3 Democrats abstained. The state law requires 4 votes for reappointment. But Wednesday night, GOP leaders introduced a resolution that says the Senate considers Wolfe to have been nominated. This move could ultimately lead to a full Senate vote on Wolfe's confirmation. Well, joining me again this week is Jessie Opoien, now with the Journal Sentinel. First off, congrats on the new gig.
Thank you.
All right, some interesting twists and turns here this week with the Wisconsin Elections Commission Administrator Meagan Wolfe. All right, we're going to start with the play here by the Democrats to abstain from voting. That's a calculated play here to try to keep her in office. Isn't that the goal?
Yes, it is. There are a lot of complicated procedural moves going on in this fight right now. And, I think to try to explain to the average person, it's a lot to keep up with. But the end goal for Democrats is to keep her in the position. And they face a challenge potentially from Republicans in the state Senate who are not likely to confirm her if it gets to that point.
So then the Republicans do their own interesting play here in the Senate, and they try to say that Wolfe was appointed. It's kind of an unprecedented move there, isn't it?
It is. I think we're going to see this play out in litigation like everything else in this state. But the argument kind of hinges on, with that abstention, whether the 3-0 vote is a 3-0 vote or whether it's a unanimous vote.
You mentioned this seems like it's headed to the courts. So you look at what the elections process here is in Wisconsin, and there's going to be a lot of kind of question marks, right, moving forward here over the next couple, probably months at least.
Yeah, I mean, we're heading into another big election. We're always going to be a battleground state, and I think I know clerks are already preparing for the election coming up. So this is a giant question mark at the very top of the agency that oversees that.
And when it came to Meagan Wolfe, a lot of the Republicans, this all started for them with the 2020 election, didn't it?
Yeah, this is all rooted in the lies, the false claims from former President Donald Trump claiming to have won the election here in Wisconsin in 2020. He did not. We know that. But that's where all these concerns with the commission have come, particularly, I guess, in regards to how elections were handled during the pandemic. But again, yes, it's all going back to 2020.
Also interesting times with the budget being passed here this week. It gets through the Senate and Assembly. We expected that because obviously Republicans dominate that and they wrote it. Now comes the question of what Governor Evers will do. Based off his comments, do we expect a lot of partial vetoes here? Yes.
He's got the option to do a full veto. He has, raised that possibility. He hasn't quite backed off of it. But the other option, if he does sign it, and he has guaranteed that if he does sign it, he will pack it with as many partial vetoes as he possibly can.
In Wisconsin, that partial veto is very interesting, isn't it? So you can strike like words, numbers. You can make changes, but isn't this usually crafted strategically so that you can only make minimal changes?
Yes. So, that partial veto power, over the past, decades, really, the power has diminished a little bit. It used to be very expansive, very creative. You could get rid of individual letters and kind of make new words. It's a lot more limited now. And, like you said, Republicans are in control of the legislature. They know that they're sending this to a Democratic governor. So they're very, very particular with the language that they use to make it as difficult as possible for him to make changes.
All in all, this budget process, did it kind of feel like it went along very similar to the last one a couple of years ago?
Very much so, yeah. Divided government, maybe a little bit more conversation between the legislature and the governor's office just because of the shared revenue deal that was happening alongside of all of this. But in terms of the actual budget, very similar to previous years.
The 2 biggest complaints, I'm guessing, from Democrats, more or less, was it about the UW system and this tax cut that is kind of slanted a little bit towards the wealthiest?
Yeah, it's that $32 million cut to diversity, equity, and inclusion programming on the UW system, and the tax cut that, in particular, they're frustrated with the change to the top bracket. There's a possibility that we could see that portion in particular struck out of the budget.
Yeah, and you mentioned the governor hadn't ruled out a full veto here. In fact, he had kind of threatened at some point throughout the process when it came to DEI funding with UW system. He more or less threatened he could fully veto if they put that in there, correct?
He did. I mean, he indicated that he would veto if that was included. I think, the way that the Joint Finance Committee maybe got around that is by saying the UW system can come back and ask to get that money back if it comes up with another way to use it. So not DEI programming, but something related to the workforce.
Last time this happened, he used 50 partial vetoes, but he did ultimately sign it. Do you kind of see it playing out maybe somewhat similar here?
Yeah, if I had to bet, probably somewhere along those lines, I would guess that.
All right. Well, Jessie Opoien from the Journal Sentinel, I want to thank you so much for the time, as always, here this week.
Great to be here. Thanks, Lance.